Hello creative designers and welcome to class. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to finish your vent professionally like this. There are different ways to finish the vent of a skirt, but this is a very simple way to go about it. So first you need your lining fabric. Of course, you have your lining fabric and you also have your main fabric. So on the lining fabric, you're going to interface the part of the fabric where you're going to be infusing your zipper. You're also going to repeat the same thing for your main fabric. Okay, so this is my main fabric. I've already gone ahead to infuse hairstay interfacing on the part of the lining that will have the zipper. This is for stability and structure purpose. Next, you want to impute your zipper line. That is where your zipper is going to end. All right. You also repeat the same thing for the main fabric. You're going to mark out the point where your zipper is going to end. For me, I'm using 10.5 inches. This is inclusive of the half inch for joining at the top. The very next thing you want to do is to mark out where your knee or your vent line is going to start from, okay? So you want to mark out the point where the vent or the slit, as a lot of you do call it, is going to start from. Now, after doing that, you want to go ahead and join your main fabric together on the center back line, just like you see me do in the video. Next, you also want to give it a very good press. So after joining, this is exactly what you're going to have. And you also want to repeat the exact same thing for your lining fabric. You want to join the center back line with 1 inch or whatever seam allowance you've added. Now let's get into the vent proper. Now, when you're marking out your vent line, you want to make sure where the vent is going to start from is about 1 inch or half of an inch longer or wider than the CB line. Okay. Next, you want to um what's the word now, duplicate the line on the main fabric. Here I'm making use of tailor's chalk just so you can see exactly the markings. Okay, so after ironing your vent line, you're going to have this. Next, you want to mark out 1 inch, that is after the duplicate line or duplicated line. You want to mark out 1 inch right towards the CB. I use 1 inch. You can decide to use 0.75 or half of an inch. Now, this 1 inch I'm marking is for the seam allowance. Okay. I love to use 1 inch because I don't want story that touches the heart. Okay. So 1 inch, you also want to come down from the CB line, the vent line, where the vent is going to stop. You want to come down from there by 1 inch. Okay. So I'm just showing you that what I have here is just 1 inch. Now, after marking those points, the next thing you want to do is to cut out the other part of the lining fabric. Now, take note that everything I'm doing is actually on the lining fabric, not on the main fabric. It's on the lining fabric. So you want to cut this out because, of course, you're not going to be needing this part. You're going to be discarding this part. So when you cut it out, this is exactly what you should have. Next, you're going to mark some notch points at this diagonal points that I have here. The notch points should not be too wide, should just be about 0.25 of an inch. Now we are done with the lining fabric. You come in with your main fabric and then you're going to place the lining fabric and the main fabric wrong sides facing wrong side. Please pay attention. You're going to place your lining fabric. Remember, we've cut out the excess and mark out the point where the vent is going to start from. You want to make sure that they marry or tally. Okay, so please, I forgot to show you, please cut out this part. You want to have this V shape by the time you cut out yours. Okay, make sure you have this V shape on yours. Okay, so let me repeat the process again. So you want to match your lining fabric and your main fabric wrong side facing wrong side. Then you pick up the point where the vent is going to start from and match it together with the point where the vent will start on the main fabric, just like you see me do in the video. Make sure you watch this video closely. Next, you pick out the lining fabric and the main fabric on the vent area. From the vent point, you're going to come down by about 0.25 of an inch. Why are you coming down by about 0.25 of an inch? It's just for sewing purpose. Pin that down and then go ahead and join that together by half of an inch, leaving about half of an inch towards the end of the lining fabric. Now, if you take note, the lining fabric is shorter than the main fabric. Of course, if you're used to lining your Ankara or any other fabric, you know that most times your lining fabric should be shorter than your main fabric because you want to have what we call an overflip. Okay, good. Next, let's continue. Now, after joining everything together, this is what you're going to have. Remember, I said leave about half of an inch towards the end of the lining fabric. Now, for this other part, you're not going to leave it like this. So I'm just going to show you what to do. You want to tuck it in this way, tuck it in this way, pin down again, then flip it over to the wrong side, pick the excess, pick the excess. This part you tucked in, pick it up, pin them down, okay, to the main fabric, and then you want to go ahead and hand tack, or you use your sewing machine and just join that point together. But please make sure you do not catch your main fabric on the CB line. If not, you'll not be able to work. Okay. So now this is what we have, and that is how to finish that point professionally. Now let's move to the lower part, which is where the main trick is. Please pay attention. Pay close attention. Now my main fabric is about 3 inches longer than my lining fabric. That was intentional. So whatever you want to use, make sure it's something you can work with. Next thing you want to do is to flip it over this way. So I'm flipping mine over this way, and then I'm going to give it a very good press. Now when you flip your main fabric this way, right, this is the actual length I'm working with. You're going to have this inverted um L shape. Okay, I will repeat the same thing here. You want to make sure that there is a point where the lining fabric and the main fabric coincides. I'll flip it to the right side just so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. So when you flip it over, this is exactly what you should have. Now flipping it to the wrong side, I'll show you that again because I need you to get this point perfectly. You want to give this a very, very good press. Now, the reason why you're giving it a good press is so that you can have a crease line. This crease line is going to help you as a guide when it's time to sew down this part. Okay? Or after ironing, you just want to mark the point where the two main fabric coincides. Where the two main fabric coincides or touches each other. That is the point you want to mark, the 90-degree point there. You want to mark those points either with your chalk or you pin them together just like you see me do in the video. I'll repeat the same thing for this other side, and I'm going to explain again just so you understand how to go about it. You want to flip your fabric this way. The point where the two main fabric coincides, mark that point, give it a very good press so you can have a crease line. Flip it over. You can as well rule a straight line just like so. When you do that, it just serves as a guide for you to see where to sew when it's time to join the two together. Next thing, pick up the main fabric and then pin them together and sew them down. Is that easy? Do you understand? Now you're going to flip it to the wrong side. Use your scissors to push out the pointy edges just so you can see exactly what you're working with. Because at this point, you don't want to make any mistake whatsoever. Okay? So now, after flipping it over, this is exactly what I have. You can see that everything is matching up. No point is longer than the other. So make sure yours is not longer than the other. Then I can now freely go ahead and cut out the excess that I have there. The next thing you want to do is to pick up your lining fabric and your main fabric and join them together by half of an inch. You will also repeat the same thing for the other side. Give it a very good press and you can see how pointy and beautiful those edges are. Come on. That is exactly what you want to achieve. So when you are done, you should have this perfect 90-degree point. Can you see? Very perfect, very neat, clean. The stitches are so beautiful, and that is exactly how to finish your vent professionally. I don't want to see any of you finishing your vents like Agbero. Don't try it, okay? So now the next thing you want to do is to go ahead and fix your zipper. Okay, make sure you fix your zipper. I don't know how you do that, but make sure you fix your zipper. Bring in the front part of your skirt is very easy. Just join the lining and the main fabric by half of an inch at the lower part, and when you press on it, this is exactly what you should have. Place the main fabrics together just like this, right side facing right side. Okay, so this is the back and this is the front. Place the front on top of the back this way, then pick up the main fabric. Now what I'm doing is called the inseam finishing. That is how I finish my skirts or my fabric or my dress. So you want to pick up the lining fabric and the main fabric just like so, and then you go ahead and match the 2 points, the lower points. Yes, match the 2 points together, pin them down. That is very important so that you don't have one stitch longer than the other. Then you can go ahead and join your fabric together by whatever seam allowance you have added initially. So let me introduce. So if you're a beginner new to pattern making, you should be in my Pattern Drafting for Beginners 1.0, a course where I show you how to draft the 5 basic blocks from scratch, even if you have never drafted any pattern before in your life. The caption and everything will be in the description. So yeah, that brings us to the end of this video. In case you've not subscribed, do where to subscribe to this channel, like, share, and comment. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.